like that's needing to be their third ban unless they have something pretty exciting prepared for it.
It's interesting that the only lock win, I believe, in the LPL so far this season has been Creme in the mid lane, and TS still don't feel super confident in picking that one up on the, or at least, I guess, on the first pick side, I should say. LGD opting for second pick. Normally, you see the 4 characters on the bottom, and that means that that team opted towards first or second pick. Normally, that means first pick. This time, it means second pick. And it means that top esports are going to get their early opportunity to select a very high-profile mid laner. Not the lock this time, though, Blockster. It's going to be that Orianna.
Yeah, like I was saying, the Orianna, just that highest priority pickup, and LGD would have known that that one was going to be coming on through. It does leave them with the open pick of all of the best remaining junglers, with the Vi and the Nocturne off of the board. It was very likely going to be the Dunfiri, and I'm excited to see that for Heng right now. It means that he's going to need some lanes to play around, right? You need lane priority to make this champion work. You want to be going for the invades constantly. You want to be looking for ganks alongside a lot of setup. They can also just look to grab something to respond with in the middle lane. We've seen plenty of aggressive assassins floating around as well, though, so you have a pretty open look here.
Looks like they're instead going to go for something on Crisp's end. Thought about that Leona ends up going for the Shen. Not only is this a powerful pick in its own right, not only does it also have a little bit of flex potential up towards the top side, but it also really disincentivizes top esports from locking in that Camille support. That is the Shen being that traditional counter matchup, and Shaoye certainly has been very often excited to pick up this Camille. I believe he's played it in all 3 series that TES have had so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of the most picked things sort of across the board, which has been really exciting to see. TES instead looking like they're just setting themselves up for a standard front-to-back team fighting option. The standard combo between the Orianna and the Jarvan works pretty well, and especially with JackeyLove playing in the form that he is at the moment, any of the available hyper carries that we've been seeing, any of the available just aggressive front-to-back ADCs or APCs are going to work perfectly for them right now. The Syndra sliding through at the moment is pretty surprising, one of the better picks to put into either of those 2 lanes, but instead just continuing to go in onto that front-to-back team fighting, going to get themselves the combo between the Rumble and the Jarvan, and I really like what TES have gotten away with in this first round.
Yeah, this is something that has been not as prioritized as of late because of the skirmish-heavy meta that we really have been in throughout the first 2 weeks of Split 3. But the good old-fashioned Jarvan, Rumble, Orianna, you see it in solo queue compositions, in Tier 4 clashes across the world, and now we're going to see it here in the LPL. Just a very easy-to-execute top 3 in this draft. It's going to be responded to by Tangyuan, locking in the Akali as we head into the second phase of pick ban.
Tangyuan really does like this Akali, one of the better picks that he has had for himself recently, and very different styling. As much as we're talking about TES wanting front to back, later game, LGD fully in the meta at the moment, playing with this aggressive look. Works well into the Orianna, of course, for the pressure, but more importantly, you just want to be pushing this lane out, roaming alongside this Neferi, seeing what you can get alongside Heng, and you've got a really strong early power spike that's going to be coming through from LGD, whilst TES are still setting up into the mid game.
See both bot laners still needing to be selected. That's why that Lucian was banned away on LGD's side. No mages really being focused in terms of the pick ban just yet. We also have seen things like Jace really take high priority. I would not be surprised to see LGD lock that one in because of the flexibility that it could potentially possess if top esports don't ban it away here. Seems like LGD is a little bit more worried about those traditional marksmen for JackeyLove, though. Makes sense to think that way, especially because you have that double AP solo lanes, meaning that there's not going to be as much physical damage unless JackeyLove locks in a traditional marksman.
Yeah, there's a really interesting discussion there where, yeah, you can kind of just fully go all in onto as much AP as possible, but I really think you're going to get a more traditional ADC coming on out. I think this Yunara ban makes a lot of sense to be taken off of the board. Now looking at LGD and what they want to grab for themselves coming into this next round, obviously still in a situation where they're just going to need something into the top lane. The Rumble is fine for the matchup with the Gnar if this is what you want to be locking in. At the same time, though, they did need some extra level of tankiness, some extra level of engage, and the Gnar very much will provide this for LGD. It's also a pretty good bridge champion between the early game and the mid game that you're looking to then play into versus TES.
There is some flexibility still, as we know Tangyuan, maybe infamously locking in that Gnar mid lane a couple of days ago. Would expect him to be playing the Akali though, and for Burdol to get this matchup that is more or less a 50-50 up on the top side. Final two picks remaining. Here for top esports, going to be Zhuo first with the Nautilus. And that could open up a number of options, things like the Kaisa potentially here for JackeyLove, or maybe something a little bit safer like a Jhin that can provide a little bit more artillery from the backline.
The Sivir also could be potentially interesting in this situation. You've got a ton of setup available to you for TES. Now, the backline access out of LGD would be pretty scary. You probably do need a bit of extra safety. The Xayah in that situation has been rising in priority as just helping you out. Looks like you're going to be right though, Grapes, with this Jhin, and I do like it. It gives you that safety by just being so far away. Of course, if you are able to close that gap from LGD, it has no tools to keep itself alive.
See a lot of, general damage on the top side already with the Rumble and the Orianna. Could be a little bit more supportive this game here for JackeyLove on the Jhin, although he has been a player that really has had to take on that extra burden over these first few series for his team, maybe getting his opportunity to allow the rest of his team to shine a bit more. Final pickup going to be the Corki here for Shaoye, as that concludes our draft for game number 1. I think all things considered, blocks here, top esports, very team fight heavy, whereas LGD, we're expecting this mid jungle of Heng and Tangyuan to get out of the map early.
If what we saw in the previous couple of games is any indication of this one, TES could struggle a little bit because LGD have got all of that priority. They've got lots of different champions to be playing around as early as possible, and that first item breakpoint is massive. Heng, Burdol, they're going to be fully online once they get that first item going. Once we hit the level 6 as well out of this Shen, all of a sudden making ganks work around the rest of the map, making skirmishes work around the rest of the map is going to be increasingly difficult for TES. And so for LGD, I want to see the pace of the game be as high as possible. I want to see them accelerate themselves into the game as quickly as they can, and if they're able to get that going, there's a chance they're able to hang on and take this first game.
Yeah, we've seen top esports play fast in their first couple of series like we saw against Team WE. That was to a more successful tune, and then when they play a little bit slower like we saw in their series against Anyone's Legend, not as much luck for them. Perhaps this series, they both want to up the pace a little bit, although TS's composition not necessarily opposed to going the other direction. LGD and Top Esports, two teams here in Group Ascend, a rematch of our upper quarterfinal from last playoffs. We're on to the Rift for the start of Game 1.
Alrighty, get all the gyros through right here, and it's good to hear there's some LGD fans in attendance. Not the loudest set of cheers that we've heard, but they are still showing out for their squad. Both junglers at the moment just going to be starting towards the top side of the map. We could see some early explosivity down in the bottom lane, but not really expecting that to be the case. These bot lanes really kind of early on looking to... Hang on, a little bit of skirmishing. Yeah, you're kind of just looking to keep this Shen in the lane as much as possible, because this Shen wants to be getting out of the lane, getting roamed around pretty quickly on, and especially with an Neferi who has tons of damage available, but not so much gank setup, that's how the Shen can really help you here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the mid jungle of LGD moving around. I was foolish to not mention the support on their side as well in the Shen for Crisp. Looks like he's going to get pushed in just a little bit, though, as it is the Jhin Nautilus taking priority on the bottom side early for Top Esports. We see junglers both clearing top to bot. It is currently Tian, who has a little bit of an advantage just due to the nature of Jarvan, favoring those single target camps. And then it might see a bit of a contest around that first Scuttle Crab. I feel like generally, Bloxer, here in this meta, we've seen a lot of split maps, a lot of early bases for junglers. We're going to get the good old-fashioned way here to start off this first game.
Indeed, I do like it whenever we see both junglers moving straight down to the same side of the map. It does bring a bit of extra explosivity occasionally. Now, if we do end up seeing both junglers skirmishing around this early Scuttle Crab, very much expecting it to go in TS's favour, with the early push they've got going on in both the mid lane and in the bottom lane, would make things a heck of a lot quicker. Plus, like you said, the early clear power of the Jarvan means that we should just be able to get to this a little bit early on. And it looks like Zhou as well, just going to walk over, make sure that his jungler is guaranteed to get at least one of these Scuttle Crabs.
Looks like Heng hitting level 4 first, and then opting to go for the reverse back up to the top side. Makes sense because his bot lane is getting so pushed in.
Absolutely. The correct decision right here. So we aren't going to see any early fighting coming on through. And early fighting, as much as we may see some back and forth between these lanes, really not expecting there to be too much in the way of solo kills unless somebody makes quite a big mistake. Instead, it's going to be on these junglers for trying to get involved, and these supports as well for getting themselves out of the lanes. There's a pretty good chance that we're going to be seeing JackeyLove and Shaoye by themselves for quite a while once these supports begin moving around.
I think either of them happy enough with that. Obviously, Jin, a champion that is known for being willing to have an isolated playstyle towards the mid game, and Shaoye on the Corki. You know, Corki's been played solo lanes back in previous eras of League of Legends. As we see some more trading down here in the bottom side. Crisp's having that Spirit's Refuge available really denies a lot of the damage that top esports can throw at him, whether it is that passive for Zhuo or the crits coming through from JackeyLove as Tangyuan's forced to head back to base after popping the Twilight Shroud.
Yeah, this is how the matchup goes very, very early on. Going to be quite a lot of damage coming through. Pretty tricky to play out the Akali. Now, once you get the level 6, once you get a couple components in your inventory, it can begin to even up. The return damage is coming through soon enough. But for right now, Tangyuan happy enough to be able to just get back to base and get a little bit of health back again. And something also worth mentioning when we're talking about these bot lanes being left alone is just the ability for dives that LGD's composition has. The Naafiri, obviously one of the best diving champions that we've got in the game at the moment. The ability to reset towers is really nice, but same thing from an Akali, same thing from a Shen. These are all champions with a lot of mobility to tank up a bit of tower aggro and then move away. So that could be another way for LGD to get things going as the hook does land.
Yeah. Instead of that shuriken flip getting Tangyuan over the wall, it is that dredge line connecting. Tian goes forward, not enough DPS to take anybody down to a meaningful threshold, so still people backing away. Overall, CS leads favoring top esports, albeit in the slightest, as we have our first dragon of the game being that Cloud spawning at the 5-minute mark.
Indeed, and the fact that we get this early bit of skirmishing coming on through, but no real kills, is good for TES. They want to just get through this early game. Their power's coming through a little bit later on. Not to say they don't have some skirmishing power though, but it's just going to be a little bit trickier to overall execute. And if they do want to go for a lot of early on plays, they're going to have to be careful not to lose out a couple of kills, because we've also seen this from TES, where they do try some level of proactivity, and then it just begins to go wrong for them, and they've got no real mechanism, it feels like, in the team to say, hang on, we're making a mistake here, let's just back off for a second and not keep pushing.
Zuian for a play onto Burdol, does overheat, missed that first Electro Harpoon, could have been enough to slow him down for a lethal range, but Burdol able to get out, although he did just burn his teleport, so it will be some minions denied on the top esports top side of the map. Now see our mid laners hitting level 6. We have Grub spawning in 2 minutes time. It looks like still a slower playstyle, which, as you mentioned, is going to favor top esports and their team fighting composition.
Indeed, indeed. So with this early Drake available as well, we'll see if we want to have any play towards that, or instead it's just going to be a push on towards these topside camps. Heng might have his red buff stolen away from him right now as Tian able to pull it into the bush, but Crisp is also arriving. They could try for a collapse.
And Tian is level 6, which means that he feels comfortable enough to go for this invade, but with an extra player on his side, Heng once again able to run into his own second spawn of the red and take that one down. Now we see some dueling here in the bottom lane. The curtain call was valked away from by Shaoye, really rendering that ultimate ability obsolete, as now top esports still contesting in the enemy jungle with Burdol having push and approaching Meganar. Heng goes forward with the call of the pack, not able to find any kill, and now Zhuo actually a little bit out of position as Burdol hops forward. Crisp looking for the taunt over the wall, and Zhuo is running the wrong direction. This is not where the Nautilus should be, and sooner rather than later, imagine that this is going to be first blood picked up for LGD. Just depends on who they end up getting the kill credit over to. Heng trying to get in there. He flashes for the smite to try to make sure he has the last hit. But Crisp is still going to hunt him down. The minion's going to end up doing it. Crisp not hitting Zhuo to make sure that he does not get the kill credit. Instead, donating it over to the Naafiri.
I mean, I respect it. I respect it in that situation. You're on the Naafiri, you really do want to get this champion going as early as possible. I think it's worth your flash in that situation. Unfortunately, because we were bouncing heavily between the fight in the bot lane and this fight going on in the top side of the map, we kind of missed the way that this one begun, but Zhuo missed a hook, dredgelines himself into a bad position and realizes there's no way for him to get out, just tries to waste a little bit of everybody's time, and he ends up giving that kill over to a really critical champion here.
And I think another example there, Bloxer, of top esports not all fully being on the same page. You know, the contest for that second red, absolutely on board with that, right? You give Tian an opportunity to take advantage of having all his ulti when Heng does not, but then they stick around for a little bit too long. Top lane ends up getting pushed in a little bit, Burdol joining the fight first, and then Zhuo just drastically out of position. It's been a story that we've been telling over and over again over these last couple of days here for top esports.
Just not having the impact they were going to be hoping from this guy, and the fact that it's just continuing to not quite work out throughout this early game. Of course, he's still got plenty of time in this game to try to turn this one around, as we are now going to see some aggression on towards this Drake. LGD looking to start this one up now, fully on vision of TES, but as we've been saying, right, a lot of early skirmishing power for this LGD squad.
Started up first by top, and then they end up backing away, so then it's LGD making their way towards this objective. Not crucial one way or the other, but getting that added buff certainly going to be beneficial as Tangyuan jumps into a 1v2. Shockwave on top of him, but the Twilight Shroud denying things for now. JackeyLove hits the deadly flourish, and it's going to be Tangyuan using that perfect execution defensively. No ulti available now on the Sakali as the Dragon approaches 2,500 HP, and that should be enough for top esports to claim it for themselves.
There we go, really nice here out of the TES members. They don't end up picking themselves up any kills, but exerting enough pressure to make it work, and now looking to potentially go in onto Shaoye, although Shaoye pumping the damage on this Corki right now. They might be able to turn this one around.
Oh, and now Tian out of position once more. The Cataclysm comes out, but it is still the Hound's Pursuit coming forward for Heng to get himself into a 2-0 position. Now in the bottom side, it is Zhuo that nearly got killed by the bottom lane of LGD. So it is LGD that are able to pick up multiple advantages on both sides of the map. A couple of extra plates, and they're looking at about 1,000 gold lead in the first 10 minutes of Game 1.
And this was just over-aggressive from JackeyLove and Zhuo. They walked themselves back into the lane, through the river rather than around the back, thinking they can potentially compete, underestimating the damage that the phaged up Corki can do. We'll have a look at what we had missed, however, on the other side of the map, as it's just Tian not recognizing that he's on vision right here. And like you said, Hound's Pursuit just doing the damage at this point. Creme luckily able to walk that one out, but down 0-2, down about 700, 800 gold. Now, TES early game struggles just continuing to replicate.
You mentioned the jungle matchup as being a position that could favor LGD. It was Heng having a monster performance on the Lee Sin against BLG. We might see the workings of another strong performance on the Naafiri here against their fellow MSI representatives in top esports. Already 2-0-0. You'd imagine he is getting very close to that first item, which he'll build out of the Brutalizer. We haven't seen him take that reset just yet. LGD feeling very comfortable with where this game state is at.
Absolutely they do. They're going to have a lot of really strong first items coming through in the next couple of minutes, which going to put them in a potentially very good spot. Also got some grubs to go and look to play around soon. Try to get some level of aggression to go play on towards... Sorry, the Herald coming up soon enough. Potentially go play and round. And I just want to see LGD keep the pace high, right? They've got themselves that 1,000 gold lead. They've done well so far. The Cyclo Sword going to be completed for Heng. Burdol, though, big damage onto him. Has for the flash, at least.
Zuian has his as well, and the Equalizer, but opts not to use it, instead going for that reset, and Heng looking to try to make him pay. Zuian still at full HP, still has that flash. We'll see what he's able to do in a 1v2 situation, soon to be a 1v3, as Chris comes in with a stand united and sends Heng up to a killing spree.
Beautiful play right there. Tian, though, stepping forwards. Does he actually want to go in? No, okay, I was going to say, if he wants to go in there, he is definitely taking himself to his death. Instead, LGD just continuing, as I was hoping, to keep the pace of the game high, making things happen. Heng 3-0-0 right now. Been incredible so far. And he looked so good on that Lee Sin. He's looked really good on all of these aggressive jungle picks, but I want to see him good on this Naafiri more than anything because it's been so high priority. Now, we might get to see a dive here down in the bottom lane, a lot of setup around a very isolated Corki.
Yeah, no minions though.
Yeah, he's gone. He's out. Just didn't feel like they could push that in fast enough. You could have always stopped that base with a flag and drag, or just the flag to keep it around. And now instead, the other side of the map, LGD Zuian, they put his ward in the wrong side.
Gotta welcome you to the top lane experience, bud. See that your bot lane is isolated, and that means that you could be in some trouble. Hey, he gets the cannon. That's a small win for him, but it has been tough going after getting targeted in back-to-back plays. LGD now have 2 more kills up on the top side.
Indeed, it just keeps on going through. Burdol grabs himself a bit of turret plating as well. He should be heading back to base to grab himself a first item as well. And all across the rift, things working out for LGD. This is just the name of this split so far from the TES squad. Early game troubles. Tian's just not getting anything going at all, and the Jarvan's one of the best early ganking champions available. Now, he does at least have himself that initial item completed, and one of the stronger ones that we've got in the game, right? Any of these champions that build Sunder Sky have some early skirmishing power, but the fact he hasn't gotten anything going before this point just worries me for the rest of this one.
Yeah, we still always have that team fighting prowess, but as you see there, that shockwave from Creme, not doing a lot of damage so far. It is a Rod of Ages tier start, which means we are going to really look towards that late game for TES to come online. Now, they have been able to overcome deficits like this before. It's just going to take a little bit longer, right? I mean, we saw that first game in that first clip of our pre-show against ThunderTalk. They overcame a 6,000 gold lead there. They were able to overcome another gold lead against them in game number 3. But it's not the most promising that this TES squad with a jungler like Tian, who looks so good throughout Split 2, is forced to be playing a lot of these comeback situations, especially against teams like LGD and ThunderTalk that are not necessarily supposed to be favored over.
Because it's all well and good, hang on, as we see JackeyLove take a huge chunk of damage here. Shaoye not going to flash for it, but just going to take a huge chunk out of the TES bot laner, right as the Drake spawning as well. That should stop any potential engage onto this Drake that TES may have wanted to do. Wow.
So they even up that count. It's going to be a Mountain Soul across the rift. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can chop this up so far from TES. Sure, there are individual outplays happening. Perhaps a little bit of inexperience coming through, specifically on the top side for Zuian, as we have a Deadly Flourish connecting. Chris going to block up these curtain call shots. You know, Bloxer, I'm a top laner. I want to talk about this situation for a second, right? Because Zuian's such an exciting player. When we first saw him take to the rift with TES at the start of Split 2. And he's currently falling into that top lane syndrome, right? Where you're able to pick up certain wins in the individual 1v1s, but then you kind of forget that it's a 5v5 game at times, right? We saw that on that back-to-back sequence, just not really being cognizant that the enemy jungle could be there alongside the support because it is a Shen on that side. So we need to see improvements out of here for Zuian later into this split. See another play, this time onto the Nautilus. Shaoye getting targeted by that Stand United taunt, and it will be Heng, going up to 4-0 in this game. Man, he's really snowballing this one, Bloxer. It's looking real good for LGD so far.
Yeah, he is. This is exactly what we were looking for out of LGD, and like you said, it just feels like there's a disconnect not just between Zuian and the rest of the team, but the entirety of TES. They are going to attempt to move in right here, want to potentially compete for this Rift Herald. Need to be careful though, even with the teleports coming in.
Ooh, taunt lands onto JackeyLove with the Shockwave, finds 2. Deadly Flourish on the other side, and Chris should go down for the first kill onto top Esports. Shaoye also caught in the hot pot, and that'll make it a 2-0 so far. Tian flag and drags away, less than 100 HP, but Tangyuan flashing after him, going to finish him off with his final Q. It is overall it's a 2-for-1 with the Rift Herald being denied at the moment. Actually, LGD picking that one up. Tangyuan dashes over the wall as Zuian is overheated, now running back towards the safety of his team. TES once again have the numbers advantage with Shaoye coming back from base, and they're going to push LGD away with the Herald spawning to clear that mid lane tier 1 turret.
Oh, and the slow off of the boomerang from Burdol at the end may well have just dissuaded Shaoye from trying to keep chasing on. Like I said, in the end, it is not going to work out quite as well as LGD hoped, but you don't get a ton of kills back out of TES in this situation. Instead, they are just going to have to settle right here and still find themselves down by about 3,500 gold. As you said, some of their first items as well. Not bringing the power as Zuian, again, just getting chased.
Feels bad to be Zuian. I feel like he's been camped in a number of his games so far this split. We take another look at this fight.
I'm gonna look back at this one, and it's a really messy split-up situation. Really nice from Creme right here to be able to land himself that shockwave. And as we've been talking about, right, the solo laners out of TS have not been the problems. That's not where we have been seeing any of these big issues coming on through. That is nice to see, at least, that they're able to make something happen, because LGD without that shockwave would have run through that team fight.
Lead continues to grow here, Boxer. I think we came into this one expecting LGD to keep things competitive. But right now, it's not looking competitive, but on the opposite side of potentially the expectations that we had entering this season. LGD, a 4,000 gold lead at the 18-minute mark. Again, we have to talk about their lack of ability to close out games as well so far this season. But, you know, you can't get off to a much better start than they have here.
No, and this is what we were also thinking about, right, with that, hey, we've seen this kind of deficit from TES before. This is why TES are one of the better teams that we have here in the LPL, and we do still feel that they have the ability to turn things back around, but it only is working for them at the moment versus these weaker teams. We would count LGD as one of them, so LGD, they've got to just keep the pace of the game going. This is the main worry for me, is that as much as they've had this good early game, they're going to stall out, begin losing pressure on the rest of the map, especially now you don't have the ability to just repeat gank Zuian up in the top lane. Right now you have to rely on your overall map macro to make things happen. They haven't shown us any signs of slowing down yet. I'm just keeping my eye out for it.
Yeah, where will that slip come and how much of an advantage can TS garner from it? Maybe around here. This third dragon spawning in 20 seconds time. We see Creme approaching that final stack of his Rod of Ages, should likely become available. Get another extra experience point by the time that fight does end up breaking out. Don't think we're going to see any other item completions for a player like Tian or JackeyLove though. It will be Tian using that EQ combo to get away, and LGD gaining early positioning around this dragon.
To be able to start this one up nice and quickly right here. Reset coming through from Zuian. He's got to walk over if they want to compete for this fight, and it looks like the members of TES just going to be way too late to this one to be able to compete. Smite it away. And LGD grab that next Drake. Stro. Oh no.
Gets the flash away. Nicely done. Using that shockwave to get him out. But again, it is Zhuo being in a position where Top Esports doesn't necessarily think he was going to be. And, you know, generally, catching people off guard is a good thing in League of Legends, but not when it's your own team.
No, very much not. And a little bit unfortunate right there that multiple times TES have looked for plays where one member wants to go in and everybody else not quite feeling it. It's just this disconnect, isn't it, Graves? This disconnect between the members of TES, and it feels odd for them to do because this is, for the most part, players that have been playing together for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, even though Zhuo not a part of this iteration of Top Esports previously. He played with JackeyLove back in 2021. You think that maybe some bot lane synergy could exist there, but again, with the current state of the meta, the bot lane synergy doesn't really matter, right? It's not often that they're playing in this 2v2. It really is more jungle support, and breaking up that duo of Tian and Fengyue that had so much success in Split 2, clearly proving to be not the easiest task to try and fill. Now we see Burdol taking a lot of damage, maybe trying to approach Meganar, but Creme's not going to be able to get him there. That's a big shutdown, given the way of the Orianna. As now it could be Tangyuan getting collapsed upon. Teleport entered for Zuian. Equalizer coming out. The Sakali has no ability to escape, and it'll be another shutdown collected, this time by the Rumble. Tian going forward onto Heng, forcing him to flash away, and this was the opening that we were hoping to see out of TES.
The only play on the other side of the map is going to be a couple plates off of this mid lane tier 2 tower, and TES could potentially try to keep things going right now. Baron, I think, would be a little bit too hasty, of course, but they are teleporting people on into the mid lane, potentially hunting towards this one, at least looking to establish this mid lane push.
No shockwave on Creme just yet, although VODS is approaching, being off of cooldown. He is looking very aggressive, and rightfully so. He's level 15, 2 levels higher than anybody on LGD's side, and now has both the Rod and Seraphs completed. This Orianna needed to scale, and Creme definitely has done that. Looking very good at the bright spot here for Top Esports.
And I understand the decision-making right here, where you're trying to kind of bait this play in. Now, to go all the way in to push onto the tower, try to get that, you know, shot of gold, I think that's too far, but you understand the play where you've got multiple members around in the area potentially looking to bait onto Creme, but you just never get that Mega Narf through. It's it's overly aggressive in this situation, and it costs them so much. The fact that you also have to flash away at the end of that play as Heng, yes, he does not die, but you really want that flash on the Neferi to be able to confirm kills. You want to be using it forwards aggressively, instead of just having flash away from a play where you're just running into danger one by one by one.
It's been, again, what Top Esports has been using to get back into games, and what LGD potentially struggled with in their first matchup against BLG. You might remember, we talked about Heng's great performance in Game 2. Game 1 was also a very explosive early game for them. We had Shaoye on the lock bottom lane. They got out to a decent lead, a double kill in the first 2 minutes at that. But then BLG able to come back very nicely in that mid to late game, and Top Esports looking to try to replicate that here. However, at the 23-minute mark, it is a two-man Baron getting started up by Heng and Shaoye. It is just gone. Nobody has any idea that this is happening until far too late. The blue trinket just confirms what is going to be a tough 3 minutes here for Top Esports as they give over the Baron for free.
This is one of those moments where I wish I was in the calls with these players, and I guess could speak Mandarin as well, because you'd love to hear it from TES. The moment of confusion of like, wait, what? How has this happened? How have we lost track of this one? But just not respecting how much damage this Corki is able to pump out at this point in the game, right? And alongside Heng, these two doing absolute work to it. Like I said, a tough 3 minutes incoming, with all of the outer turrets already confirmed, other than a little bit left on this bottom one. You really want to get as much of this standing gold remaining possible. They can explode themselves out to about a 6,000 gold lead if they're able to use this Baron effectively.
Yeah, at the very least getting that tier 1 on the bottom side. Burdol finally able to get what he was hoping to get a couple of minutes ago, once Top Esports ended up killing him for the first time this game. Now Tian looking maybe for an aggressive play onto Heng. He smites the red buff away. But now this is really where the split pushing can exist on LGD side. The solo laners both very capable of completing a 1-3-1, as we have Tangyuan pushing on the tier 2 top side as the dragon is about to spawn. He can join the fight with a teleport, and Top Esports know it as they're trying to gather some priority here in the mid lane.
Just keep on pushing through. The reset coming out as well. Potentially be a big explosive fight right now. It's a lot of darkness actually to be stepping into from LGD, but they've got flanks, they've got angles to try to make this collapse happen.
Already see Tangyuan TPing in, going to be that full-on 5v5, which should benefit TES. The gold very much on LGD's side. Dragon at 2,000 HP going over. It's secured by JackeyLove. The Jin somehow from a mile away able to deny soul point for now. Shaoye the first casualty as the equalizer comes out, separating Shaoye from the rest of his team. But the front line of LGD is diving onto Creme. The main carry for TES is down as it's Heng to pick up the gold. And LGD lose the dragon, but they certainly don't lose the fight. It's a 4-0 with them pushing down mid.
And they can potentially push really far right here. There's still 40 seconds until Creme is back up and available. 20 seconds for the remaining carries of TES. And they are blasting through the base. Tian, the only remaining member for another 5 seconds. And even then, it's only going to be Zhuo.
Yeah, trying to clear the wave, but there's just no ability to do that as the Jarvan, the Cataclysm, only delaying Top Esports' game being ended. Zhuo comes in, is still 8 seconds on JackeyLove, and there's 5 members of LGD hitting onto the blue side Nexus in 26 minutes. An evisceration of Top Esports as LGD go up 1-0.
Completely and utterly emblematic of the problems we have had with TES, and the fact they were able to win themselves their first 3 series, I think plastered over a lot of those cracks. Yeah, sure, there were some worrying signs, but they're winning. It's okay. They're winning. It's okay. No. All of a sudden, no. Puts them in a really scary position to go down 0-1 to LGD. Massive congratulations, though, to LGD for executing what was exactly the right game plan to punish these TES weaknesses.
Yeah, a very impressive showing from LGD Gaming. Of course, got to finish off this series if we really want to layer the praise down. But this is not necessarily what we were expecting at the top of this season, Bloxer, right? We saw these 3 teams from Group Nirvana coming up here into Group Ascend, LGD, EDG, and ThunderTalk. We expected them to be significantly weaker than the top of the table, but they have proven they're able to really punch up against these teams that even were at internationals just a couple of weeks ago. And LGD, the latest version of that, as they take a game off of BLG a couple of days ago and now are at match point against Top Esports.
It's match point as well. In that BLG matchup, they lost the first game, so they were able to scrape themselves back a win in game number 2, whereas this is full control out of LGD. And I really want to get into why I love exactly what it is that they did here to punish Top Esports. They recognize that Top Esports just can't deal with early map pressure. They don't know how to do it. Tian, he's just lost the ability to play through the early game, play around his lanes in any real meaningful way. I don't know what it is. This is not a problem that this guy has had throughout the entirety of his career. It has just come in recently. And because of that, if you just play an early aggressive champion, that Heng does with this Neferi, and give yourself a couple strong lanes, which they did, that they could play around, all of a sudden, you put yourself in a great spot to win, and they capitalize on that.
Yeah, I think the junglers for all of these former Nirvana teams, I should say, really taking that next step. We talked about Heng, obviously, players like Junhao and Xiaohao also, putting up a bit of a fight, but it really was all about Heng here in this game specifically. The Neferi was able to get accelerated off of that early Flash Smite combo. You talk about how maybe flashing for the support isn't necessarily worth it. It was definitely worth it here for Heng on a champion like the Neferi that really needs to scale. Absolutely delivering here on this pick. 100% kill participation. I'd be incredibly surprised if he was not our player of the game.
He definitely deserves it, but it wasn't like there was a weak link at all. Burdol does his job, keeping the pressure up, making things happen. They make ganks work. This is pretty much just going to be the exact same set of highlights that we're going to get for the MVP for Heng right here, because he was a part of everything. Like I said, 100% kill participation, and just so good at accelerating the pace of the game on this Neferi. The Neferi is super strong at the moment, but I have seen plenty of junglers, good junglers here in the LPL, not be as proactive as he was on this champion, and it has cost them, because a Neferi from behind really does not provide very much from your team. But this was incredibly impressive, and I like the fact that they're going to be showing up a lot on the top side of this map, moving away from JackeyLove in the bottom lane, who was really the bright spark here for Top Esports. He just never got to get anything going on this Jhin at all.
Yeah, tough for your damage per minute number that we had for him at the top of the show. That's certainly going to go down a little bit. I think he had 8k damage total on this Jhin in what was a pretty brutal loss for TES.
Hey, at least the game was short, right? At least it wasn't 40 minutes. The
minutes are lower. Yes, that is true. The damage fell also a little bit lower. And talking about Heng again, just for a little bit, because again, he was just so impactful in this game. Somebody I was pretty critical of at the start of 2025. You might remember, back in Group Nirvana on OMG, he ended up getting replaced about halfway through the split, I believe, or just really didn't look great for that squad. But now, in a new environment here with LGD, I was surprised that they went with him over Climber in 2026, but he has proven to be a very worthwhile decision for them, as he has been a big part in LGD making it up here to a top 8 spot in the LPL.
And it does just feel like the current meta champions really suit him. You've still got all of these basic engaged junglers that we've been seeing, the Jarvans, the Xin Zhaos, the Pantheons. They're all still floating around, but then you've also got this sprinkling in of the aggressive pickups, like this Neferi, like the Lee Sin that we have been seeing as well, and all of this combined feels like it's working just so perfectly for him, where he's got all of these different looks to be going towards. Be really interesting to see what he gets in this next round. Obviously, with Fearless, not going to get the Neferi, but you've still got things like the Vi and the Nocturne, the Lee Sin that you can potentially go to just from the aggressive picks.
Yeah, still a lot that this meta has to offer as we go further and further into Fearless Draft. LGD picking up a very dominant win over Top Esports, and there it is, our player of the game going over
Least
towards
surprising
Heng.
Player of the game here. I mean, like,
I'm shocked.
There was no chance it was going anywhere else. That 100% kill participation, 30% of your team's damage as well. He was everything to this squad, and I love the fact they're able to pay him back for it as well. With good lanes, with great play across the board. A really deserved team win right here out of LGD.
So, they are one game away from really flipping the LPL Group Ascend on its head, sending shockwaves throughout the rest of the league, but Top Esports trying to avoid that. They have to win 2 straight in order to get up to 3-1 in the record books. That's going to